Hello map friends and welcome to map chat number 16, and today I'm very excited to be joined with Nathan from Where in the Realms on Instagram, who is a long-time internet friend and just a wonderful supportive member of the cartography community, and I'm super excited to be able to kind of showcase you his work and talk to him and see a bit more about the Nathan behind the screen. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Hello.
Hey Eve.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Brilliant. How are
Awesome.
you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on Map Chats.
I'm
um,
excited to be here.
it's just, yeah, it's really nice to finally kind of meet you after we've been speaking for about a year. um,
About that, yeah.
yeah. So it's really great to see a little smiley face and get to talk to you about maps, which is like my
the,
favorite thing to do, really.
the main thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can agree with that.
the main gig. So yeah, so kind of kicking off the interview, I guess, is can you just tell us a bit about how you got into mapping, why you kind of started? Have you always been kind of creative since you were young?
So yeah, I've been drawing for as long as I can remember. Um, my journey started out when I was little. And essentially I like the idea of always telling a story or having something to say. Then going through school and whatnot, I studied art, and through college ended up dropping art because I'm mainly colorblind. I can only see like 4 colors. So
Oh, okay.
so that brings a real challenge, which is why a lot of my stuff is done in black and white,
Yeah.
because a lot of color I can't really see, it's including green. Green is a color that's just a hindrance for me.
Yeah. Green's quite
um
an important color in mapping, I would say.
yeah, just a little bit. so so I always had this, yeah, as I was saying, this thing about where I wanted to tell a story. And I think realistically my mapping adventure started when I was first introduced to role playing, about 8 maybe 9 years ago, by a good friend of mine. He goes on Instagram by the name That Nerd There. He taught me basically how to play Pathfinder first edition, which is
Yeah.
3.5 equivalent in Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
um he taught me that, and then I said I wanted to play my own game. I started drawing and then decided that these maps needed to be better, my players deserve better, and from there it kind of grew. And yeah, it just hasn't stopped really. I always want to try and produce something more,
Yeah.
a better quality. And it helps because this community really drives me along. I take inspiration from so many people throughout the community that I feel like, hey, I can do that. Can I twist that slightly? And yeah, so that's
Bring it
essentially how
around.
I got into mapping.
Yeah, that's really good. I always find it interesting to see. It's kind of like a chicken and an egg thing. Which came first, the mapping or the D&D? um,
Yeah,
it seems
it,
to, really inspire a lot of people. I mean, I kind of personally ended up doing a map for D&D kind of by accident, and it's kind of grown from there. So it's really fun to hear kind of like how you came to be a cartographer. Um, and lucky that your friend introduced you to Pathfinder.
yeah, it was basically on a hit or miss chance. He was back from uni and we were all sat around basically going, I don't know what to do. What are we going to do? We haven't really got any money, being, so most of my friends being going to uni and whatnot. So I didn't have a lot of money. So we needed to find something which was cheap and affordable. And
Yeah.
it ended up being that a couple of dice and a few bits of paper would have led to this
Imagination is
whole,
free.
yeah. That's it essentially. So yeah, there we were, all sat around. I can still remember it, the first session, sat around my friend's table, crowded. There was about 7 8 of us crowded around it was definitely a 4-person dining room table in the
Yeah.
smallest room you could probably imagine for 8 people.
Just getting
And
cozy.
it was like one big communal hug for about 3 hours. And yeah, that was the intro to Pathfinder and D&D. And from there I've tried out several systems, and yeah, it's just gone crazy from that point onwards.
Yeah. Are you still playing kind of actively now? How are you finding it with the C word?
we tend to avoid that one. That's not a nice word. Um, with this pandemic that's going on, it. So I moved down into where I'm living now. I bought a place with my partner, and I'm living where I am now after I think it was about a couple of years living with her, and we've been here for about 2-ish years, something like that now.
Yeah.
Um, so we moved, and then as soon as we moved, the pandemic kind of started, and so it kind of hindered everything for a brief moment in time. And then we decided that my partner's dad, she's been playing role-playing games since the dawn of time, let's say. um and he said, well, there's Roll20, why don't you try for Roll20 and you can start actually producing some stuff for it. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll have a look in it, that kind of, oh yeah, okay, if you think so, and yeah, better. He was right.
Don't you hate it when that happens, when somebody else is right?
So much, yeah. You just kind of sat there and went, wow, this is actually not that bad. So we did find that obviously the system crashed on Roll20, so we used like Google Meet on the side as like the video calling, so that way we're not expecting the server to be able to run video and the game and everything all at once, and we found that a lot better, to say the least.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think the whole D&D world kind of went, oh damn. Like, what do we do?
but basically I was talking to someone the other day who works very closely with like some Roll20 bits and pieces, and they said that since the pandemic, weirdly enough, D&D and role playing has dramatically increased. Everyone's got the time to do it. Everyone's now picking up new hobbies, and everyone's interested in how they can escape the confines of, well, the four walls that you're stuck in.
Yeah, I think it's healthy. It's a kind of really good outlet. You can fight trolls in your pajamas.
That's just it.
It's always a good one. So
you get funny looks if you go down the shops in your pajamas, but fighting trolls.
Well, to be honest, I have gone to the shops once. I went to Tesco once in my pajamas, and that's a badge that I'm gonna hold, on my chest. I did do that once.
You braved it.
I was a student, so I kind of get a bit of a free pass, I think. When you're doing your dissertation, if you manage to, even get out of bed, like, well done to you.
You're doing well, yeah. Brilliant.
So can you tell us a bit about kind of your mapping process, like how you come up with ideas, how you then execute it, and that kind of stuff?
So I guess a large portion of what it is that I do is it all starts with being outdoors, and it's a bit of a weird one, I guess, because most people are just happy to sit through Google Images, but I feel like I need to physically visit a location, or yeah, you need to feel it. So we live right on the doorstep of the New Forest in England, and it's beautiful.
Lucky
there's so much culture and heritage here that there's always inspiration in something. At the moment I'm running 2 games. I'm running one which is set purely in a jungle, where there's no civilization. A kraken attacked the ship and they washed up on the shores and such, and I needed inspiration for that. I was where can I start building maps? Where can I get everything from here? Because being near a woodland, it's not really like a jungle in the sense of the same biome, but I gotta find a way of making it work. Luckily there was just like there's ruins galore throughout the New Forest if you know where to look, and that was the perfect start. That started everything. And then I started researching into things like the Aztec Empire and the history of that, and that is crucial. I think the history of this world really can help you build a map. And then it goes into the stage of the sketchbook, where I sketch out some ideas, wait until I'm really not happy with any of them, sleep on them, and then come back to them.
Been there, my friend, been there.
I think that's the process of every cartographer. If you're not doing that, you're probably lying to yourself.
You're sick and then just go away. Just throw it,
that's the one.
throw it down. Like, no, I'm not talking to you for the rest of the day, and then come back and you're like, okay, I can work with this.
Yeah, maybe we could work things out. And so yeah, then it goes from the sketchbook onto, well, it used to go into an A5 book that was 5 mil dots apart. That was really handy because at the time I was living in a very small bedroom in my partner's parents' place due to long life stuff and whatnot. And it was good because it was mobile. I could take it anywhere. I could sit in a coffee shop and I could draw. However, now I've got essentially this room that I'm in at the moment, which is a full studio that I've now set up. And
D&D den.
yeah, this is essentially it. Yeah, I'm currently sat
Living
in
the
the
dream.
confines of the confines of the computer space. This is, and then just to my left over there, which is, well, I can't really show you. I've got a picture of it if you want to see. Is the setup of the desk and whatnot, where that's where I now work on the artwork. However, it's kind of been out of commission over the pandemic because I've needed a workspace and I
Yeah.
had to sacrifice something.
Yeah. That's a struggle a lot of people have found, that they don't have any kind of desk space or whatever for their own kind of like jobs and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's kind of it. And then eventually it makes its way to Instagram, but and my social platforms. But I've got such a backlog of content that I've got to put up. But by the time I get around to actually sitting down in the evening, sometimes
yeah,
about 8, 9 o'clock, I'm just kind of sat there going,
ain't nobody got
just want
time
to,
for
I just yeah, I just want to watch a TV program and go to bed.
that. I can relate to that. Absolutely. But I suppose it's good to be in a kind of like a backlog of stuff rather than not having enough stuff to put up. So you don't have to worry about that when the time comes that you can finally start to post like when you want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, looking forward to the end of May when I've got some time off to really just actually start maybe pre-scheduling it just so I know it's going out and that I'm actually getting some feedback, and then just checking Instagram for the messages and the notifications and whatnot, just to hopefully tag it along.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so you kind of say that you get most of your inspiration from going outside, seeing the real world, and kind of turning that into maps. Do you ever kind of use any online resources? Do you have any particular Instagram accounts or Pinterest boards or whatever that you use when you can't go outside because it's inevitably raining?
So well, apart from the UK weather where you can't actually go outside, a lot of time I've got several sources, I guess you could say. I'll start off with some bits and pieces, which like the Pinterest and that sort of stuff. They're a great mood board. I advise everyone create a mood board. Look up pictures of
Yeah,
biomes. Look up pictures of
I like
locations.
this advice.
Just create a mood board, and I tell you, it's a real game changer because you don't realize how much you get wrong from your imagination, but when you have a reference or something to go, oh, that's how that leaf looks, and you want to put in a special plant or whatever, 100% use a mood board. You can't go wrong. The other place, Google Earth, Google Maps. It's free, obviously, and once you're on there, you can browse over. The amount of times I've browsed over to different places in the world and then hit into Street View and looked up different locations and areas. There's if you use the Street View stuff over the Amazon and you have a
Yeah,
wide enough area, every now and then you will find somewhere where there'll just be a random pin, and you may just be on a ruin of some sort. Someone found something interesting there, so there's got to be something of interest there that you can use.
yeah,
um so that's basically the kind of like ins and outs. But I'd say realistically, I've got a huge inspiration from the community here on Instagram, and social in general. Really, there's people that unfortunately I couldn't find the original artist's name or anything like that because their maps are so old as
yeah,
such. However, then I can read you off a list. I guess one of the biggest inspirations that I've got is, people probably know him, is Skull Fungus. He
yeah,
does these great illustration maps, and they're always so always seem so detailed, but with such thick, bold lines that I
yeah.
can never mimic that.
Yeah, no, I really like his maps too.
They're absolutely amazing. And then I guess the person who, well, he was, I'll always remember him because he was always my first follower here on social. He's a guy called GM Finch, and if you
Oh
don't
yeah,
know, if you don't know Tyler, then honestly go check out his stuff, because his stuff is just amazing. He draws it usually in a sketchbook.
yeah.
He's recently got into digital
Colourful.
coloring and that sort of stuff, and it's mind blowing. Once again, it's that whole really high detail, really simple line work.
Yeah.
And whilst I aim to be like that, I always end up looking at the maps and going, no, it needs more lines, it needs more hatching, it needs more
Always more
something.
lines.
Yeah. There comes a point where I do ask myself, where do I stop? But if you want someone that's not a mapper, who I really what they are, but they also do a lot of like side work in their sketchbook and that sort of stuff, there's an account called Misty B, or Misty dot BEEE. You probably know her, but absolutely amazing stuff, with
Incredible.
all the line work and whatnot. And then you've got these small worlds that she creates from mushrooms and that sort of stuff, where it's her imagination is amazing. I tell you, you sit there. I look at a mushroom and go, I wonder how long that's been growing. She looks at it and goes, I wonder what could live there. And that's just crazy. And obviously you are one of my inspirations, Eve. Yeah. Saving the best till last and
Little
whatnot.
old
But no,
me.
what you produce obviously is just amazing. Your maps, you've grown really well and really nicely, and your quality of content. My favorite stuff of yours is obviously when you've done your red maps and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's been my favorite stuff that you've done, because it's just so out there and unique and new, and it's a great perspective on things. And then my last inspiration, or major inspiration, so I say, there's so many I could keep going, is Lanny, Paths of Inspiration. She's great, fun personality. I've spoken to her on more of a personal note than mapping and everything like that. And she's I don't know, she just brings something to the table that's really unique, as in her maps aren't permanent. A lot of what she does is not permanent. She knows full well that at the end of the day, she's just going to erase it. It's not going to be put on a frame and hung on a wall or anything like that. It's just going to be erased. And I don't know, that just brings a perspective in my head that it's okay for this map not to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be functional. I guess is a nice way of putting it. Yeah. It's something that people can look at and understand. But what she does, the amount of detail she goes into, and it's just crazy. I would honestly love to sit down at her table when she plays and just have this erase map laid out in front, and just look at it and go, I'm really sad that has to go at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, but I think it is a good lesson that all of us can learn, that, you know, this art can be like, you can kind of get rid of it if you like. It's possible to erase it, and that it's not the end of the day, and that perfection is not is not a thing.
Yeah, that was a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm still learning it every day. So let me know if you ever figure out the secret.
I found a great way of doing it is contour drawing.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially put out a bit of paper in front of you and a pencil, look at something you want to draw, and never look at your bit of paper until you think you've done the drawing. It's called contour drawing, where basically all you're doing is tracing the lines and the figures and whatnot. And what you'll have on the bit of paper will look, unless you're amazingly skilled, your hand-eye coordination is just perfect, it will look nothing like what you're trying to draw. The amount of times I've tried drawing a mountain and it just, I don't know, it once looked like a cat. That was an experience.
Like that game where you do like a squiggle on a piece of paper and then you give it to another person and they have to make it into like whatever they see, like a mouse or I don't know, a demon.
Yeah, basically that. But I'm not skilled enough to take a bit of squiggle from another person.
I'm sure that's not true. I've seen your map, so I know it's not true. I'm not sure you'd be a very good squiggle artist.
Maybe that should be something in the future. I'll give it a try. Maybe use squiggles. Yeah, we'll
We
go
could
with
do
that.
a hashtag squiggle challenge or something.
It's Squiggle Saturday.
I'm well up for that. I'm not sure how it's going to be mapping, but we could get a fair few like D&D creatures out of it, I think.
Well, that would be interesting. That was like, yeah, I recently worked with Styrian about D&D creatures, and we done a like a collab there, and that was done on a more of a let's design a creature each and then stat it up. But I think Squiggle Saturday with creatures could be, we could make that a thing.
Here first, folks. We're just copywriting that idea right now.
Yeah, that's it. It's now patented. You can't take that.
Oh, that's great. So you've got loads of different inspirations. I think that's really great. And the most kind of like important thing really is to try and get stuff from different sources. I think that's what makes an interesting artwork or an interesting artist, though you just kind of like take a bit from here,
Yeah.
a bit from there. And
All
can
together.
you like tell us a bit more about, so I know that you kind of started off doing kind of just by hand, doing it in your little dotted notebook, but now you've recently moved to doing more digital work. How have you found that? What prompted the change? Will you ever go back to just doing by hand, etc., etc.?
So I still do a lot of stuff by hand. My latest map that I'm working on is entirely by hand. There's something that a computer it'll just never feel the same as drawing by hand with your pens and then smudging it and going up, why?
Literally,
But
I did that yesterday and I was like, my hand hath betrayed me.
yeah, there's no control Z on a pen.
Oh, I was miffed. That's what I was.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, the amount of times I've started again because I've smudged something or I haven't had it work properly. Too many to
Trigger warning.
count. But originally, so I've been in digital art a lot longer than I guess I've let on to the community. Because way before I started doing mapping and that sort of stuff, I was for a very brief period of time a freelance illustrator. So
Okay.
I worked freelance where I was doing car show t-shirt designs, poster designs, and that sounds a bit like, oh well, you basically just done a bit of Photoshop. No, I was genuinely drawing out a lot of the work. I have one of them sat on the wall above here where I've got a picture of a Harley next to a Mustang, and that was, so yeah, that started on a tablet which sat in front of you and you had to look at the screen and then draw on the tablet.
Yeah.
I'm super glad that I chose to go with a screen tablet, although the price tag wasn't the nicest thing to fork out for. Yeah, I kind of sat there and went, have I made the right decision? You know, anything over a certain mark, you go, did I really need that? But
yeah, you did.
but yeah, I lost my job just after we moved. I'd lost my job because I'd sorted out all of their problems, and then they went, well, we don't need you anymore. So I kind of went, oh no. And I would just as I bought the tablet, and I came so close to just giving it back and sending it back and going, we need the money more than I need the tablet. And it was my other half that went, don't worry, we'll sort it, we'll get through it. You need to keep your tablet because that's you, that's everything you want to do in life. And I went, okay, I'll keep it.
Really lovely.
yeah, it was she's really supportive, to be fair. She's behind me 100% in everything I do, and that she's one of my players. Been there for a lot. But yeah, so I have this it's not a Wacom or anything, it's a brand called XP Pen, which is it's they're on the same level as Wacom. They're slightly cheaper, I think. Or this one was back then. I think they're slightly cheaper now. But anyway, I have this one now, which I do for all my digital work. I was doing a lot of it in Critter because I preferred the brush engine. Critter is a free artist application.
Okay.
However, You should definitely check it out. Critter is Krita,
Okay.
and
I think it's like a little insect or something.
yeah, yeah, that's what I thought of when I first heard of it. It was just by chance. I was watching a random YouTube video about some illustration, and he just spoke about the brush engine in Critter, and I went, oh, sure, I'll give it a try. Let's see. It's amazing. And recently I've just subscribed to Adobe Photoshop, so that well, the photographer's bundle, because that covers my photography interest as well. And then yeah, so from there we've now gone down the road of digital in Photoshop, and still crying when I smudge something in traditional medium. But what I can say in my advice is get some artist gloves. 100%. Get some. They're like this. They're like gloves like this. Here you go. Look at this.
Ooh.
They're gloves like this. They've got 2 fingers on them. And when you wear them on your hand, oh, not like that. When you wear them on your hand, you get this nice, and this doesn't smudge. It doesn't smudge your work. Unlike the oils, I think I picked up 5 pairs for or 5 gloves for about a £5 online. Yeah, really cheap, and it saved me a lot of heartache.
You find though that your 2 fingers that have got the gloves on are really nice and warm, and then the other 3 fingers are just real chilly.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes
I
it's
get
led to
really
putting the
cold
heating
hands
up.
when I'm drawing, really cold.
Yeah, sometimes it's led to putting the heating up to make sure the room's nice and warm, so that I don't feel cold and the rest of my fingers don't feel left out.
Well, that's good. They need to be, they need, being taken care of, the same as the other 2. Sometimes after I've been drawing, if I've been going for a couple of hours, and I'll kind of like put the pen down and I'll be like, oh, to like
You can go.
do this to kind of like get it to come back to life.
It's good though, because you can go pour yourself a glass of water and then just hold it for a little while and cool it right down.
So that's great that kind of like you're still doing both things. I think that's going to be really good for you, because you can kind of like, I think digital work is becoming more and more competitive in comparison to traditional work. Like, obviously I'm a traditional artist, and for the time being that's how it's going to stay. But
Yeah.
I definitely think that moving towards digital stuff, or at least incorporating it into your artwork and your business, I think is a really good idea. So kind of how do you go about world building in terms of your cartography? How does the world building fit in? Do you kind of try to think up the story more before the map, or does the map help you inspire the story?
So that's a bit of a strange one, because I like to experiment with both ways. My most recent campaign is I say the one that's set in the jungle. I just kind of sunk their ship with a kraken, and then they unburied themselves out of graves on the shore.
You
And I kind of went, I've got no other way. I don't want to start you in a tavern. The taverns are overdone. So let's sink the ship that you're all on, and then somehow you survive after you were buried. I haven't thought that through yet. However, there's probably a reason for it somewhere.
definitely.
And then I just let them off into the jungle. I went, it's a jungle. I don't need to worry too much about world building. We can just build small encounters from there on. And then it kind of started out that this larger quest line developed. And from the larger quest line, I then started developing a map. And that is, I actually posted the first picture of that map world building recently, last week, actually.
Yeah.
Found some time to actually get something up. And so, yeah, there's the, that's the start of it. But previously I had a it was like a Viking inspired game, which come to an end recently because pandemic took over and gap was too big and we lost all memory of what was going on. So we're starting again on a different one. But yeah, the Viking game, essentially I knew in my head that the Viking invaders were going to be the good guys, but I needed to develop the map to be the to make the map feel like the Viking invaders are the bad guys. and that come part of the map challenge, because then it was a case of why would they attack in certain spots and not others. And
Yeah.
eventually I had to reveal to my players after the game had ended, yeah guys, you were fighting for the bad guys. Realistically, the good guys that were coming in were angels that were abolishing demons from the land, and that's the reason for the invasion. But so I guess it all starts with, if you can and you're happy with starting with an overall plot line, then yeah, 100% go in with a plot line and map out to that. But other times it's good to start a campaign knowing very little about your area of play, because then you get to explore it together.
Yeah.
And that's something that the Viking game that come to end, that same group, we sat down and had session 0 last week actually, where I sat and went, guys, what do you want? What do you want to play? Like, I'm fed up of just being the main inspiration source for everything that goes on in the world. What do you want to play? It turns out we're now playing a multi-biome monster hunter kind of game where they go out and hunt monsters and save locals and all that jazz. And it's set around a floating city above some islands, which is run by guilds and gangsters.
Nice.
Yeah. I wouldn't have made that one up, but that's a great, because now I'm bouncing off other people and I've now got this really interesting setting to play around with maps. So a future map that is coming up would be my city maps, and these little, they're like wild magic biomes as such, where the each island is a different biome, so that way we get to explore multiple areas, for instance the tundra and the desert and the jungle and the woodlands, and it sounds really cool. It sounds really cool. I can't wait to start it.
Diversity in the storyline.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of campaigns, unless your scope is the world, which to me is too much. It blows my mind. I can't I can't cope with world building. I can cope with region building. So
Village building.
So yeah, so I essentially build in regions, and the fact that I get to build all these different biomes in one regions, and we have the anchor of it's just an area of wild magic that makes no sense anyway. Sure, let's go with it.
That's all you can do, just go with it.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, blame it on magic.
Amen to that. And do you have any kind of like tips for building in interesting encounters? Like when you're drawing your maps, do you think about the encounters which might happen in certain areas, and how do you kind of make those interesting and engaging for your players?
So the beauty of playing in person is I can lay something out in front of the players, because I like to build like some of the scenery and bits and pieces as well, so I really get to just get hands on with it and dive straight in. But when you're drawing a map, and it's one of the hardest things to represent on a dungeon map, is think about elevation. Elevation is so important in a combat, because if you've got enemy magic users that are casting down from balconies onto onto the party, and the party are having to deal with the enemy tanks and whatnot, you find that these casters, you can throw really low end casters into the mix against a really high end party, and because these casters can't be touched, because they're in cover or whatever, then it makes it really interesting, because then you've got this whole, they have to think tactically about what it is they're doing. Apart from that, be aware of space. You could probably put like an ogre outside and think nothing of it. However, if the ogre is deep within a dungeon, I like to think of how the ogre got into the dungeon. It's not always the same way the players did. So sometimes the players are walking through the gates.
Pie and just went.
Yeah, essentially.
Pie.
Yeah, just started climbing down some vines into this cave and went pie. Yeah, just think about how the monsters got there and why they're there. And if you're not sure, once again, blame magic. A wizard put them there.
Magic.
I think that's the beauty of D&D, is magic can explain 90% of what's going on in the world, and your maps don't have to make sense because of that, realistically.
Yeah, no, that was something I was going to ask you, like how you feel about sticking. I mean, most of your maps are obviously kind of like dungeon maps or city maps. So geography in terms of like the way that a world map would be isn't quite as obvious in those places, but like how you think, how rigidly you would want to stick to real world principles of geography versus the
So
magic scenario.
I'm I've just brought up the my world map, which no one's seen apart from me in front of me.
Secret map,
It's not, it's
like
no,
those.
oh it's probably not something, it's needs some work still, and it's probably not something I'm ready to release yet for the world of Inventor. Inventor is the name of the world that I play in. It's the last world I've put my foot down. It's the last world I'm ever building. Everything now is
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
matter of
We'll have that in
matter of
writing, please.
I built too many. No, this is I'm now playing with timeline because I enjoy very much steampunk kind of gameplay and whatnot. So I can now just go, if anyone wants like a medieval fantasy, oh well, we'll just go back 1,000 years before steampunk was invented and would use the same country. And I haven't world built all of the world yet, so you know. But in terms of it, I looking at this, the world is very, very similar to Earth in the fact that there's a layout which makes sense. I actually sat down in Photoshop the other day and tried to like squish it all back together as if it was the dawn of time and then the land's separated out. So I took a scan of it and then squished it all back to see how it all move and that sort of stuff, which really gave me indications of the tectonic plates, which would then give me I could sit down and work out from there where volcanoes and mountain ranges and all that sort of jazz would come up. I'm really into that. There's Artifaxian, I think it's called, on YouTube, who does this really in-depth world building bits and pieces, who I really enjoy his stuff. So in terms of logical world building, I love it. However, you've got to remember that you're playing Dungeons and Dragons where dragons exist. Or
Yeah.
if you're, or even if you're playing something like Cyberpunk, remember that it's so futuristic. You build anything you want, and you can just say, yeah, technology. There's always an excuse. You don't have to worry about limiting yourself. I think the one principle that I will stick to is a river should never connect from a sea to a sea. That's the only principle there is.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm interested in why it's just that principle and not like the river splitting, etc., etc., which I know is a contentious subject with some people.
So there's a lot of real world examples where rivers do actually split.
Yeah,
Um, it's it is something that people do look at and go, it doesn't seem like it's natural, but there are a lot of places where rivers do actually split open and go in two separate directions. I can't name the rivers, but you could just quickly search them up on the internet.
yeah,
Places where rivers split. So I think if it can happen on Earth, it can definitely happen in your your fantasy world.
yeah.
So if you're not sure whether or not something is logical, look up, see if there's any place on Earth where it happens, and if it doesn't happen, then blame magic. If it does happen, then you can just use the laws of physics.
I'm gonna get you a T-shirt with that on. Blame magic.
Blame magic.
The magic made me do it.
Well, yeah, that'll be the merch that's coming out.
Heard it here first, folks. There's a lot of original stuff happening in this episode. Have to get
Merch and
some
Squiggle Saturdays.
yeah, Squiggle Saturdays and Blame Magic. I mean, I think we've revolutionized the community with just those two things, to be honest.
That's exactly that. That's it. The community will never be the same.
Talking about the community, tell us about how you feel about social media. How has your relationship with your art kind of changed since you've been posting on social media? How do you see your social media presence in general kind of evolving over time?
So, when I first started drawing maps and whatnot, I just kind of put it on I guess at the time it was my main account, but now I just look back at it and go, what was I doing? Because I was posting pictures of my dog, I was posting pictures of maps and whatnot, and I just kind of sat there and went, I just want to. Sorry.
Everyone wants to see pictures of dogs.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd post a lot more pictures, but it's always the same. They're always sleeping.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, Devon Rue pretty much just posts pictures of her cats instead of
Yeah.
maps, and people are okay with that. So I don't see why you shouldn't.
More pictures of dogs, more selfies, and more maps.
Oh, dogs, dogs.
Let's start a protest on that. um, in terms of social media, yeah, when I started and actually then decided that I was going to up my map game, so it wasn't no longer just a line and with a square box and going goblins or whatever here. It's
Goblin.
now yeah goblin troll encounter. And just like that. So yeah, I really decided to up my map game and just basically start drawing something a bit more in depth. And then I started posting. It was daily. I started posting daily, and it was just small updates. It wasn't anything major. There was no major updates. It wasn't like, look at this entire continent I've drawn. It was just, look, guys, I drew a new plant. And that's how it all started. And realistically, I do miss those days where I just posted everything, every minor bit and piece, because there's a lot of people that put out a very high amount of pristine work.
Yeah.
And realistically, it's not that pristine the entire time. It starts off and there's squiggles here and lines there that make no sense, and eventually it slowly comes together, and that is something I think that puts new people off. But in terms of social media presence, I did put out a story. I know it's so long ago now, where I was asking for questions that people wanted answered. I want to get into like videography and such, because I studied that through college, and it's something that I really enjoy. So I want to get into answering questions, giving some like world building advice, just from any experience, and just asking the community as well. There's no better source of inspiration than each other, really.
Yeah.
And get into I don't know how long ago it was now, but I've done that time-lapse video, which I put up on YouTube, which I really enjoyed making. And it's now just a case of, once I have the time back, all of these questions that were asked are going to be answered. It's now just a case of finding the time to make sure that I've got the time to edit the video, or film the video, edit the video, post it out, and so on and so forth. So
Absolutely.
eventually, yeah, what I'd like to do is be more of my face, and
Yeah.
not so much of
Face.
be more of my face, and less just black and white line art, because at least my face is somewhat in color.
It certainly is. I can vouch for that. Full color, Nathan.
That's the one. I'll just put it over a filter, just shift the hue a little.
And do you kind of find that social media, does it act for you as an incentive? Like, does it keep you in track, or do you find that sometimes it's kind of like just too much?
Social media has definitely lowered my phone usage, if I'm totally honest. Since I think I didn't plan to go anywhere with mapping. I just kind of wanted it up there as like an archive of what I was doing. So I could look back, and if I ever had to show, if one of my mates went, hey, what are you doing? I'd be like, look at this cool drawing that I done, that kind of thing. And then I kind of started growing on the platform, and I went, hold up, what's going on? I just draw maps. I don't do anything special, guys. All I do is have a couple of lines here, a couple of lines there, and call that a map. And then I think once I hit about 300 followers, my phone usage started to drop, because otherwise you check it all the time, looking at it going, oh, new people like it, here's a confession. Every new follower that I've ever had, I've always checked out their profile to see if they're worth following back. And that's obviously people come and go all the time. So it's probably about 1,400-ish people, I think, in total. I think I've estimated it to be that I've checked profiles of because they've all followed me. So I went, you know what, let's see. And my follow account, I don't follow a lot of accounts because my worry is that then I'll just spend more time looking at what they're doing, comparing myself to them, going, why can't I do that? Why can't I do that? And then not actually sitting down and drawing. So sometimes when I'm in the studio, the phone will be the other end of the house.
I think that's really good. That's admirable.
It's interesting because part of my work, what I do for a living, I'm a marketing executive, and so the social media for the company is my responsibility too. So I kind of grow tired of social media because of it. It's not that I hate being part of this bigger picture, because I love the idea of that. I love there's this community that grows and whatnot. But it becomes very tiresome when it's both your job and your hobby. I mean, if someone went to me, you can map full time, and I'd 100% do that as a hobby and a job. But social media is just it wears.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think what's really great about the cartography community is it sort of seems to exist. Obviously, it exists on social media, but the bonds that you make with people seem to survive outside of that, I would say, in general. Like the people that I have come to speak to on a semi-regular basis, that even when I don't respond to them straight away, or if we're off doing our own projects, that you can kind of come back and that conversation just starts up again regardless of time and space, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm the world's worst at replying to messages. You know that. You firsthand. You
Yeah, but
know
I'm not so great at it myself.
But yeah, I totally agree. Pick up that conversation that you were having a week or 2 weeks ago because you haven't replied, and it's almost like you move away from your best friend and then you start talking to them 2 years on, and it's like no time has passed. It's amazing. And for that reason, social media is so powerful, because I'm able to connect with people from all around the world. For instance, yourself, Lanny, who's over in, I think it's the Netherlands, if I remember right. I've had friends that I've made in America and that sort of stuff, and I've done that behind a screen in the UK. I'd love if there was some sort of like big convention that we could all meet up at some point.
Wow.
But
Yeah, I'm totally like up for organizing that.
here we go. There we go. There's the third idea. That's it. No more tonight.
Power of three. Like we've got like the ideas.
New merch, Squiggle Saturday, and Mapping Con.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as I can run a panel, because I feel like I'd be all right at it. It'll be fun.
Oh, I could just imagine it.
I don't have any idea how I would choose the people for a panel if I did something like that. Because
I don't know.
I'd have to pick names out of a hat. I think that's just how it work.
Maybe one by I think Josh. Everyone knows Josh.
Yeah.
Josh would definitely be on that panel. Yeah. Josh would definitely be on that panel. And Daniel as well. Daniel's maps.
Yeah. He was really good. I mean,
and
that's the thing. Like all of the people that I've spoken to, like in my interviews and stuff, that everybody's great at doing what they're doing in their own way. And I absolutely agree. I can't remember who it was that said it first to me, but follow account has absolutely no bearing on how talented somebody is or how much effort they're putting in. And I know that there's smaller creators who are making awesome stuff. And it's just the fact that the algorithm has not favored them as much. And you don't know kind of what's going on in people's real lives that allows them either that they've got loads of time to post, or that they've got really intensive full-time jobs that means that they can't post a lot, even though their work is equally as good as another person who has lots of time to post.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if social media wasn't a thing, I'd still draw. Drawing social media is just like a boon, and I think that, yeah, you're totally right that there's a lot of undiscovered accounts. I honestly would love to see more of them. If I'm totally honest, I'm trying once I get back into the back on the platforms a lot more and life isn't so hectic. What I want to do is have this like a community highlight reel as such, where we just all start sharing someone who not everyone may know of. I feel like I feel like we've got, yeah, we can shout about ourselves a lot, but I think shouting about someone else is what is going to grow, because then we'll bounce off each other and then everyone will start following everyone else, and the algorithm or Instagram gods, the little wizards behind the keys. Yeah, it'll just, there'll be so many more ideas that just float around from this amount of people that are out there. And we're spread across all platforms at the minute. I mean, there's people on Facebook that aren't on Instagram. There are people that are on DeviantArt that aren't on any other social platform. There are people that are on Reddit. Reddit is a huge inspiration.
I'm really scared of Reddit. Like, I really want to go on Reddit, but I'm afraid. Forgive me, Father. So I'm afraid.
I like Reddit because it's kind of anonymous, because you kind of sit there and go, okay. I mean, if anyone searched up my Reddit username on Instagram, they'd obviously find my account because it's exactly the same. But it's sort of that anonymous area where, because I've not really put my face to my account that much, I've essentially got this feels like a shield of protection or something between me and Reddit. But I think moving forward, especially after this interview, I say want to get more personal.
No more shield for you.
More
thank
personal.
You, I'll have that.
It's now, now there'll be all sorts of screen grabs from my friends and whatnot, making memes and Christ knows.
Oh, well, I love a good meme, so
hit me with them. Just screen grab any bit of this.
Best memes ever. Probably with the bits where my face froze from the internet being unstable. I like how it was like unstable, not like your connection is bad. It's just like it's unstable. It's like, whoa. Oh no, I've cursed it. Oh bloody hell.
Oh, you've just frozen my screen, and it's the perfect. It just illustrates exactly what we were on about.
I literally just did it. I'm so sorry. Like, internet squirrels. I know you can hear me. Like, I'm sorry. I'll do my sacrifices after the interview.
I should have been. Just go and get the bag of peanuts and throw them over the lawn. Brilliant.
What is your favorite map that you have ever drawn? I'll let you have a top 3 if you're really like
okay. I'll give you my absolute favorite, and then I'll give you my top 3, because there's 100% the top 3 in there.
Okay.
My favorite map is the Mech Shark lab, underwater lab, with the little fussel in the top left hand corner.
Yeah.
that was by far my favorite. Just the fact that the idea of these mind flares, these illithids that live underwater, and they're trying to bring back a fossil megalodon. I had no idea where I was going with it. It was just really cool when I got to draw a shark.
It's always a good day when you get to draw a shark.
Exactly that. But I got this. I'm looking at it right now, actually. It just gave me this. It took the medieval out of it. I picture mind flayers as these very technologically advanced race that are able to use computers, and they're obviously come from alien planets and all that sort of jazz. So it just gave me this opportunity to draw something that wasn't medieval. It wasn't D&D, but it was D&D. I think honestly, I'd like to draw more maps of like things like cyberpunk and that sort of stuff, tabletop role-playing games. But that's another venture. My second favorite one, I'm got that open on a tab here as well. was it was like a pub, a tavern, which was based off of somewhere that I actually really enjoyed going when I lived back up about an hour away from where I am now. Um, that was just, it just gave this whole new perspective to taverns aren't just a box, but bring shape, bring interest, bring contrast. Go to a pub, go to a tavern, go
That's
to an
always
inn
good
and
advice.
just
Go to a pub,
yeah,
have a few beers,
yeah.
then try to draw a map.
Drink as much alcohol as you can and then do the contour drawing.
Yeah, draw with your nose.
Yeah, that's not going to end very well. I don't think. But honestly, get out to these places because they have some great layouts. Even if you just take like a small pocket notebook and pencil, just draw the layout. I tell you now, you come back to it and you have a look at it and you go, "That's an awesome layout. Why does that not make sense?" And if you don't know half of the layout, for instance, I never got to see the kitchen. We just make it up. We just make it up. That's magic.
Magic.
And then my third favorite map I've ever drawn, and this is something I really want to do again this year, because it went down so well, is my cheap map challenge. I put out to the community, guys, you've got to draw a map and you've got to do it as cheap as possible. You can't use your fancy pens, you can't use your fancy pencils. So I drew this map. I gave the base layout and then just had everyone drawing their own version of it. It it told me that biros aren't the best for drawing maps, especially when you have hand cramp.
Yes.
But I was able to draw the entire map with including buying all the resources and whatnot for about 19p. So it makes no difference if you've got a quid spare or whatever your money equivalent is, euro, dollar. I don't know what the other side of the world is. If you've got
Something else.
yeah, something else, magic. If
You have one magic, you may use it.
one magic coin. Yeah, if you've got, it honestly doesn't take a lot, and then you can get into mapping. It really doesn't. They're my top three by far. Shark Mech is my favorite to date, but I think the one I'm working on at the minute is probably going to overtake that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's a region map, not a dungeon map either. So I'm really excited for that one.
Geeky region map. We like that.
Not quite the world, but close enough.
Getting there. Building it.
Baby steps.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And kind of like my final question is, do you have any dream projects that you would love to do? Kind of like, well, we can kind of like either go one of the two ways, like the realistic dream projects of like things that you'd like to create, or things like I'd like to have a map that is featured in Game of Thrones or something. Which isn't unrealistic, it's just more out there.
yeah, it's quite big. I don't know. I think I'd probably put this in between. It's somewhat unrealistic, but at the same time, it's not impossible. Me and my partner, we're working on our own RPG system. I know
Tasty.
a lot of people have turned to stuff like that recently, but we're trying to make it different by having this biomech magic fusion that you don't see anywhere else. So these biologically advanced mechanoids is what we're calling them at the minute. That's a work in progress name. That are magically infused with different bits and pieces are able to take over large regions and whatnot, and they rule the world. And it's very grunge, steampunk, takes inspiration from cyberpunk, Dragon Warrior. It takes loads of inspiration from loads and loads of places. At the minute, the working title that we've got is Realm Punk, is our RPG. So what I'd love to do is get a rule book created, and within that rule book have a map, and then basically try and sell this RPG to people as something that they've never experienced before. You've played D&D, you've played Call of Cthulhu, you've played everything else. Have you ever tried an infusion of all of them? And a lot of people, I've had a lot of people go, is that going to work? And then I started explaining the concept in real depth, and they kind of sit there and go, "You thought about this way too much. I know this is going to work." It's now just putting it all down onto paper and going from there. So the ultimate dream, I guess, is to have. This is why I said this is the last world I'm building, Inventor, because I want Inventor to be the home. Inventor means creation in Latin. I want that to be the home of Realm Punk. I want Inventor to be the home of Realm Punk. So everything that happens in it while I play my other RPGs that I'm running campaigns and such, it's world building for something that I'm building in the future, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, long-term goal, have a map in my own RPG system, which then hopefully hits the shelves.
Well, that's really exciting. Like that's really cool, and you've obviously got loads of ideas, and that you can do it with your partner as well. It's really nice. You've got something that you can work on together.
Yeah, it's kind of like we bounce back on ideas back and forth, and sometimes I'll be sat there watching TV and she'll shout through from the other room, "What do you think of this?" I'm sat there going, that's not relating to Van Helsing. That's what I'm watching. Yeah, that's not related. What are you on about? so yeah, it's great because but I carry around like a small A5 notebook, and honestly, get an A5 notebook if you haven't got one. Anyone listening to this, just get an A5 notebook and a pencil, and I just note everything. If you go into a library you like to look out of, and take that, any inspirations from books and whatnot, 100% take inspiration from it all. But yeah, long term, I'd love to have that all up and running.
Thank you so much for coming and doing a map chat with me. It's been an absolute delight, and yeah, I wish you the best of luck with all your map related endeavors.
Thank you very much, and it was a great joy to be here, and lovely speaking to you, Eve.
Thank you, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Take it easy.
Oh.
And
okay, bye.
Brilliant. See you later.